Hello, and welcome to the Project Good podcast. I'm your host, Anne Ray Hilton. Project Good is a social impact podcast interviewing experts and advocates about the pressing problems that we face globally and hearing how they suggest to move forward in the future. The Project Good podcast is brought to you by Project Good Work. The goal of this podcast is to inspire people and organizations to develop a mindset that can move others to positive action regarding the complex social issues facing people and the planet. For May, we're focusing on data and our future, and this is a special edition episode with Brady Analytics. Today, I have the pleasure of interviewing Jeff White, who is the founder and chief executive officer of Brady Analytics. Prior to his founding of Brady, he founded several companies and led them to successful exits. These companies included MySBX, sold to Delta in 2009, and Blue Canopy, sold to a private investment firm in 2007. Jeff has over 2 decades of experience leading successful companies and was awarded the DC Technology Entrepreneur of the Year in 2011. As a founder of Blue Canopy, Jeff led the company to receive 2 Inc. 500 awards for being one of the top 500 fastest growing private companies in America. Jeff's passion for entrepreneurial spirit extends outside of the workplace, as he often guides other entrepreneurs towards the path towards success. Let's get into the interview. Founded in 2011, Brady Analytics is the enterprise location technology company providing actionable intelligence to businesses. Using its patented technology, the company brings data about people, places, and events together to understand human mobility, helping companies enhance their sales and marketing strategies and optimize business operations. Today, the company's intelligence powers leading-edge solutions for a wide range of industries, from advertising to market research, financial services to supply chain risk management. They rely on knowing how people, products, and materials move throughout the world. Welcome, Jeff.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. I am looking forward to what I think is going to be a very exciting topic.
Yes. I'm just so excited to talk to you today and learn about, I think, a topic that is becoming, more and more important to just, I guess I'll just call them the layman people, like everyday people. Everybody is, interested in data these days. And, I think one of the biggest things, obviously, that most people encounter is that they use most of their data on, I would say probably on a daily basis. I forget the exact statistic, but social media is, the biggest data exchange, I think, for a majority of the people on the planet that are just, I'll just call regular mojos. And so this is why it's just, such an exciting topic today. And before I get into the questions and everything, I'd always like to know a little bit of personal information about people, and I do it so that I can understand kind of how they think, how they came to be who they are in this world. And, becoming an entrepreneur is not something I would say that is for everyone. So I guess what took you on this journey?
No, it's a fantastic question. And you're right. It certainly isn't for everyone. And most days I always ask myself, why am I doing this again? But the engineer in me, which is what my background is, cannot help itself from looking at problems and trying to fix them. And in many ways, almost all my businesses that I've ever started weren't because I had a compelling reason to do something other than solve a problem. And certainly in the previous exits that you mentioned, all of them were trying to tackle a problem that I was experiencing in my daily life. And certainly Gravy Analytics is no different. So yeah, it's really the engineer in me that just compels me to keep going.
Okay. Wow. That's, and I guess, really cool, I guess, that you have to be, I would say, courageous to take the entrepreneurial route. Definitely it's not for the faint of heart.
Yeah. Someone once told me that logic has no place in an entrepreneur's mindset, because if you did think about it long enough, you probably would talk yourself out of it.
Yes. And I know that just from a personal aspect. In talking about the topic of data, and I think data, and I'm going to say data and privacy, because that's the main concern that people have, right? About data. Nobody's really concerned about necessarily that we have information, but they are concerned about how is it affecting, them in their daily lives, and how is it being utilized, and all of those kind of things. And so, what would you say, I guess, when we are, just to give you kind of a statistic overview, just recently, and this is something I got off of Pew Research and preparing for this interview, is that over 50% of the population is scared about how their data is being utilized in the world. And they put it into, I would say, I guess the easiest way to describe it is they put it into two different categories of what they think about information usage or how it's being utilized. So they put it into categories of how data is being used with companies. We all know what companies are. And then, of course, everybody is concerned about, quote unquote, Big Brother or the government. Those are the big, those are the ways that people are mostly concerned. And it's over 50% of the population is concerned about how these two entities are utilizing their data. And also, I guess people feel like they're being spied on. I'm trying to think of a word, but I'll just say spied on. And so my question, and just kind of setting up the conversation, is like, I guess, and then maybe we should just start at the beginning. Like, why is data collected even? And how, what's the purpose here?
Yeah. Amen. It's funny. I hear surveys like that, and I think to myself, 50% of the people are concerned about their data and privacy and other things. Like, who are the other 50%? Who isn't?
That's like, the weirdos.
Yeah. Why isn't 100? Why is that not 100%? But it's a good point, and I think just broad table stakes, setting sort of the apertures of how we analyze and look at the world. I think data's not going away, right? Privacy concerns aren't going away, and it's swimming around us. We interact it, we create it, we control it, we share it. I mean, all of these things are around us every day in more and more ways, with IoT devices and camera systems and Ring doorbells and all these other things. I mean, we're just swimming in data. So I always like to think about the world in terms of two ways. It's transparency and control. Right. I'm really okay with sharing my healthcare information to my doctor. It's a trusted relationship. I understand it. I get value from it. I don't want to share it with my pizza company. Right. Likewise, I'm really okay with having my healthcare information on my iPhone in case there's an emergency. I just got an iWatch, so I'm learning how all this works. Right. So if a first responder comes to me, they can get access to what might be critical information about my healthcare, and that's control, right? Only when I've consented and other things. So I think whenever we think about the world, at least how I think about the world, in terms of data and privacy, it's always control and transparency, and I want to control when and with whom and how I share my information and I receive information. And then I want to understand the transparency of who is actually collecting it and for what purpose, and make sure that balance of trade is something that I trust and know. And in another last example, I'll just give you an example of like your bank, right? Your bank knows so many things about you. They understand where you spend your money, which then implies where you spend your time and what you spend your money on and all these things. But it's a trusted relationship. You trust that your bank is going to control this information, that your bank needs to have this information to balance your accounts and do all the things you want to do. So that relationship has a trust. It's transparent, in which case you're okay to share the data with your banking institution. So those two pillars, I think, are always paramount to working with data and the implications to privacy.
Yes. And, and that's so great that you split it up into kind of like, people definitely, banking is pulling a lot of information financially, because I guess when it boils down to it, right? Now that you brought up that, everything does come down to money, doesn't it? That's why people are mostly scared of their information, is like, how is it going to be utilized? Most likely it's somebody's going to utilize your data in a bad way. It's usually for some kind of gain, like financially, because the other thing as well, not to sound criminal and outlandish, but the other things kind of don't count.
Well,
so yes,
and hopefully it makes your lives easier, right? I mean, I don't know.
Yes.
If you log on to Amazon and see a bunch of stuff on your homepage that's not relevant or related to you or anything else, it suddenly it creates a friction point to how you engage with the content. So, I mean, it can also hopefully it makes our lives certainly easier. Data is used to monitor traffic patterns, right? That helps our commute patterns get easier. And there's a lot of things that it can hopefully make on a personal level, our world a better place in and around us.
Yes. And so, going on that how, data, like the different things, like, I think I was doing like the history of data. I jumped into the Nerdville a little bit. I did history of data. And so data has been being collected way before, of course, that we had computers. They've been collecting data since, I went way back to, like, we were looking at, it went out of America to Europe to like the 16 and 1700s. Obviously, people were not doing as complex things. They weren't looking at people necessarily, down to the level that the granular level that we look today. But they were collecting data, like, where people live. The big thing was, how many people you might have, like, way back then, indentured servants, and, what they were working on. So data collection has been around for a long time. It's only, we've gotten more and more different information from people because of the different types of industries that have developed over time. And so one of the things that I was finding in the research is that the different things, like a lot of times when I talk to just people, they were like, oh, well, why did they need to know that, I go to, True Foods and, I'm a vegan, and, they didn't need to know that. But this kind of stuff does help when it comes to, understanding, personal characteristics and all those different things to marketing. And so I'm going to, being that that's where Gravy Analytics really specializes in, I wanted to kind of understand a little bit how you guys are using those types of data to help these industries, because I know you touch so many different industries and you are able to get down to that granular level and kind of show, I guess, the capabilities, and then explain how that data is then utilized in great ways to then serve sometimes customers, decide, maybe different ways to, change trajectories of companies. I'll turn it over to you to kind of explain that a little.
No, it's absolutely. And it's funny you talk about the beginning and origins of collecting data. My suspicion is this goes back to the beginning of time, right? The first time that the cavemen tracked the migration patterns of woolly mammoths, right? I mean, they were using data, right? They just didn't call it time.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, I had some pictures of cavemen. So I started mapping, and you know how they do. I'm a National Geographic lover, and so I started thinking of those cave paintings, and I was like, perhaps those were like, they're like, they were over here, guys. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. But absolutely. So, but fast forward to today, it certainly is a lot different. I think. And it really goes back, I believe, is that at least in our world, as it relates to understanding consumers, understanding preferences, how to make experiences, engagement, personalization, relevance, convenience, all of these things better. If I as a brand, if I as a company can understand at an aggregate level how my brand is being utilized, how my products are being engaged in the world, and what's working and what isn't working, I should be able to influence all of my marketing and product roadmaps and merchandising and all the things that helps those experiences and engagements better. And I'll give you some specifics, but I think we just published, by the way, a really intense, long privacy study on consumer privacy and data. We have it published on our website, but there were some really interesting and relevant findings there in terms of that balance of trade of, because consumers, what we're willing to give to get, right? I love my free apps, and I'm willing to share some things with those that makes those services free, and hopefully improves my engagement and experience level. I'm on Facebook. I'm going to be served ads anyways. At least the relevance of them helps make it less jarring and a little more palatable. And who knows, I might discover something that I otherwise didn't because they were relevant and targeted to my interests. All of that is bound in the wrapper of aggregated, anonymized, privacy-friendly, and at its core, particularly in our world, consumer consent and control. 100% of the information that we and our industry touches in many ways is consumer consented on the front end. So it's not an opt-out, it's an opt-in framework. That's one. And understanding that there's transparency and control, that the consumer always has the ability to understand what that data is, what its intended use is, and then control whether they choose to continue that relationship with that provider or cut it off.
Yes, and it's really important that you brought up that they do have control over their data, because one of the things that I learned, and maybe I shouldn't have learned, but I guess I'm probably just like everybody else, and you just you jump onto these applications and all this stuff, and because you need to utilize their service. But in different applications, like when you do sign on to a Facebook, a Twitter, and I don't know, they have these different community groups, and there's so many different apps and things that you could get to be part of. But a lot of people don't realize that in that small writing that you never get to, because you're like, okay, I just have to sign up and or it's 30 pages, and you're like, I don't have 30 hours to go through this. That a lot of times when you go in there, it goes into the detail of how your data is going to be utilized and shared and things like that. So people do have control if they take the time. And it's just, it's just, that time that we don't want to necessarily take. I learned that actually recently when actually with Facebook, I went to, it was like a special talk I was part of, and going through that, you don't really realize sometimes what you are signing up when you are signing on these websites, that they're not doing stuff that is, underhanded. It's just that you didn't take the time necessarily to, read all the fine print. Yes. So I learned that actually.
Well, it's not just that. I mean, I bought a house not too long ago. There was 1,000 pages of documents. I mean, no one's right. I mean, it's almost
right. And that's where you're like, how many hours of light?
right. It is enormous.
And so, I guess after just talking to you, I was going to ask you the question, but you kind of answered it, of should individuals be gatekeepers for their data? And I guess I'm going to take a positive yes for you.
Well, and I think, it's ironic to say that. Then you started off the conversation by saying 50% of the people don't care. I would hope that number goes down over time and not up. But and maybe it's a generational thing. I don't know, but you certainly should care. But it goes back to transparency, right? I mean, I didn't read all of those pages of my mortgage signing and disclosures and documents. It just was overwhelming. So at some level, I trusted the relationship that I had with the mortgage company and the finance company and the bank company and that there was enough trust there for me to only try to pay attention to what I thought was most relevant and important. I don't think the world is going to change anymore. I just bought an iRobot vacuum cleaner thing. You know what those are? Those little the similar to that. There was like 100 pages of documentation, and it's an app, and it's got an IoT, and it's mapping my house and doing all these things, and it's like, whoa, it's a little vacuum cleaner. But again, it's collecting and assimilating data about my home to make its job better. And do I want that? Yeah, sure. Map my living room so you know where the dirt is. That was a good balance of trade.
Yes, and that brings me to the question, like, should people, they're so, the world is, especially, I'll say, becoming more and more automated, especially after we have this pandemic because of the fear of contact and touch, right? And so automation, I noticed grocery stores that used to not have self-checkout, now have self-checkout. Like, for instance, okay, yes, I'm a Californian. I'm one of these organic folks, but not over the top. Like, yeah, I like trees, but I won't be knitting a sweater for them. So I do go to like different places, like there's a grocery store called Sprouts, and it used to be like just is a small store, and you just they had a few cashiers, but they also went to like just do it yourself checkout and things like that. And a lot of different stores that you never thought were going to do that started doing things like that after the pandemic, just because we became fearful of passing germs and getting ill and all those types of things. And so it's kind of like we're being pushed into this era of automation and self-help and everything being online for our safety of health. And then also the other thing that we realized in the pandemic is all this stuff is convenient, right? and we love convenience. And so do you think, because now that we're seeing the benefits and the perks of having all this convenience, and now we just like, okay, yeah, do I have to go in person? I don't. Why would I? I'm just gonna, I'll go online and I'll just press the button. Should we then start to be scared that we're just now maybe, freely sharing our information, and it's just become like second nature to us because we crave and love the convenience over even thinking about it anymore?
Yeah, it's fascinating in terms of societal evolution and macro trends. And I think COVID has been an accelerator to what would otherwise have been a 5 to 10 year trajectory and made it into 2 to 3. And I'll never forget my grandfather being afraid to use a credit card because he thought that the bank could understand where he was spending his money. But society over time has generally traded convenience for those kinds of trade-offs. So I think, I have no crystal ball here, but I think in the world where information can help bring convenience, accelerate decisioning, accelerate times, is not going to go backwards. And somebody pointed it out to one time to me, like you go to Google and you type in a search term and you get results, and on the bottom of the search bar it says results rendered to you in like, I don't know, milliseconds, right? Whatever. Like that's a thing. Like, oh, I'm glad it didn't take 30 milliseconds, only took 20, because boy, my time is valuable, those extra 20 milliseconds. But it's become such an important thing. How fast can I get you the right information in front of you. And I will tell you, as a society, it seems like our patience is getting less and less for inconvenience and misappropriated content, merchandising results, and other things. And data is a great leveler for that. In Google, I actually have to input data to get better results. But what if it knew? How much faster could it be? What if it knew more about me? What if it knew, and it does now, it autofills your search terms. It's too long for you to actually type out the words. Let me suggest the word. So yeah, as a societal macro prediction, it seems like we are not slowing down the acceleration to convenience.
Yes. And, when you were saying like one of the things that I'm sure you're already looking at this and, deal with this every day, because you were bringing up things of like AI. AI is now, taking this data and blending it to, essentially serve up things faster, and now maybe even give us like suggestions. Because one of the things I think that people encounter is that there's so many choices. Yeah. And so, this mix of, data now coming in contact with AI, making it maybe easier to do those choices. I know there's mixed feelings, and I'm sure you have feelings too about the, the emergence of AI usage regularly. But I know that's on a different topic. But just because you started talking a little bit about how giving people more information and giving them options and all those kind of things, and so that just made me start thinking about AI. I'm sure you're already looking at that.
Oh, it's great. Yes. By the way, we've actually done work in this area. And AI means different things to different people. A lot of people confuse AI with just like machine learning and algorithms. But, take our world and some examples we've done. And you've probably seen some of the case studies that we did with the University of Florida on evacuation protocols and parameters and helping get people out of forest fire areas and other things. Well, the answers are in the data and how to understand this, but stop for a second and think about what causes these kinds of natural disasters. And we see climate change occurring globally. We can argue about why and how and fast or non-fast, but if we were able to take intelligence to what is global, massive amounts of environmental data, process it and synthesize it in a way that gives us true understandings of causality, we can make a difference in climate change, right? To understand what is core to the problem. And that's just using compute horsepower working against massive amounts of data to understand, what is truly going on and how to change it. And then we can make a difference. Otherwise, we're all shooting blind and interpreting data differently and acting, undemocratizing what should be a global decisioning platform on how to make a difference. That's all data, and artificial intelligence will break through all of those things.
Yes, and actually that's where I was leading next, because I know you have a whole, one of the things about Gravy that I loved is that you have a whole segment about data for good and talking about, at the different things that, data has helped provide. You've looked at, as you mentioned, at the University of Florida, you've looked at things, obviously there's climate change. You've looked at things like racism. And I'd love to hear, I guess, one of the stories that you like, I guess, is your favorite, or something that you felt that maybe you thought about different at the beginning, but once you got data involved, you were like, actually, it's, a little bit different than we thought it was. If you'd like to share.
Yeah, no, totally. I think it's something that we're very passionate about, right? And on a personal level, I've always just been raised, both from my spiritual beliefs and personally, is that you always have to give back, right? And we're very blessed. I've been very blessed in my life. We're very blessed in this country, a lot of things, but with those blessings comes the responsibility to make sure that you give back and help those that aren't so blessed. So that's part and parcel to me personally, but also in our company. And so we've institutionalized that into this whole program called Data for Good. We work with academia. We donate a bunch of information. We help municipalities, and in all ways is let's try to leave a little better than we found it. And so we do a lot of that work every day, and it's across a lot of vectors, and most of those we try to and are always looking for new programs, new ways to engage. We learn, we make a difference, and everybody is better off for it. And COVID has really shined the light on a lot of things in this country, where we are in need, right? There are children who go to bed hungry every night, and yet restaurants will throw away food at the end of the evening. If we could understand where these things are occurring, if we can use data to remove what is a friction point to understanding supply and demand, just on that micro of a thing, we can make a difference. And so we published a whole thing on our website now. You can see it called like food deserts. Most people don't understand what that term is, but there is an issue of hunger in this country, and we are one of the richest countries, if not the richest in the world, and yet we still have children who go to bed hungry every night. That is a catastrophe. I mean, it kills me.
That's sad.
Very sad, and I don't think it's because people aren't good. People aren't willing to help. We don't know how. And this is where the visibility and transparency and data can make a difference. So we published this whole study on food deserts in DC, and just seeing where there's a dearth of support and infrastructure to make a difference here. And it all starts with data. Like, you can't solve a problem if you don't know the problem and how it exists. And so that's very, very passionate to our hearts.
Yes. And I was reading about the different things that you did, and it was just, you gave me a whole different perspective on data, but not only that, it's that and this is, I'm going to go to kind of esoteric, but not so esoteric. If we all live in this, I'll say, a modern technology age, that, if we use the word connected, right? When we think of technology, obviously we're thinking about, our cell phones, our laptops, our tablets, and whatever not else you have. Mm-hmm. But in this connection, it's also now a deeper thing, because this data that we are, just thinking about necessarily our individual selves and how we are traveling through this virtual world called the internet, and utilizing the different things. But this data then, as it compiles with companies like Gravy, it's creating like I guess you would say, in a way, silos of information, but then they are also connected to tell the story of how we, and I'm using the word we collectively, as humans, are interacting with the things that we are creating, our daily lives, and with each other. And within that connection, then data then shows us, as you're talking about, the areas that are lacking these food deserts, these I don't know, there's so many climate crises. I think we just went through, as we see, we just have this the Turkey and Syria earthquake, and I'm sure there's more to come. It seems that every year since 2020, we're some new catastrophe unfolds. But with this connection, it's even deeper, because it's telling that story, as you were saying, of how we fix it, because we are essentially the people causing these issues, and then showing how we have caused it. And then also you can go back through the data and say, how we could reverse it. And then it also goes to a different level of, we are connected to each other to bring each other back together. And also it's like a vicious cycle. The cause and the solution are all in one, in this connection. I know I just went off into a wild tangent, but if we really look at, data is our kind of umbilical cords together of each other. If we look at that, I know that was wild.
No, wild tangents are where great ideas go to evolve. So it's fantastic. You're right. In abstracting yourself from the tactical things that this conversation started with to the really intangible macro things and tying those together are really important, and great exercises. So I love it. You're spot on.
Yeah. And so, so in, you've just really opened my mind of how essentially that each individual, without them doing too much, like, and too much, I mean, like they don't have to make much of an effort because, on this planet, as they say, people may not have water, but they have cell phones. It's actually a true statistic. You may not have running water where you live, but you have a cell phone. And so in that, your data is, getting collected and also connected to others. And through that, when we're looking at using data for good, you are putting on your own cape, essentially, your own super cape, and utilizing this data because in participating, I guess I should say participating in sharing your data, because then it can then be turned into good to help a fellow man, because you're not just operating isolated.
Right.
Yeah, I just love like when you started talking, I started getting these images and pictures in my mind, and then that's the biggest picture, is that you don't have to go out there and great, do it, feed the homeless, or help children in danger, or I don't know, save the whales. You don't, great if you can, but if you don't have the ability to maybe go out and do that, sharing your data and how you're living your life alone is helping to contribute to, the betterment of the planet or other people.
No,
If I'm understanding how you utilize data.
oh
Yeah.
yeah, 100%. It's almost like a Monet, right? Each one is made up of a little dot, but when you pull back, it makes an amazing picture, right? And it's sort of like we as individuals and our contribution to those efforts. And we see this, by the way, every part of the world right now. Take what's in the news right now, right? The Ukraine, right?
Okay.
There is an enormous amount of humanitarian aid that is needed to support refugees um, that are escaping a war zone. So there is complexities of a war zone. There is lack of understanding. It's the fog of war. Where are they going? How long are they staying? Resources are very finite. People's attention, people's dollars, the material themselves, all of these things, there's never enough. So you have to make sure that what you do is got the biggest bang for your buck and the most efficient. Well, data informs us all about those things, right? And if I am, to your point, people have phones and not water. If I'm able to contribute and share some information about myself that informs refugee movement patterns and natural disasters and war zones and turkeys of the world that are dealing with natural disasters, then that alone helps first responders and aid organizations and others who are trying to help get the right things to the right people and the right time. That's all important work.
Yes. And so, the question that is, that I think people are going to ask after this is that, okay, well, yes, I understand sharing my information can help my fellow man, could, help save the planet. But there is the dark side, as they would say. So how do I protect myself from, my data being utilized, negatively against me, but then be able to still, push forward to be a positive contributor to society?
Yeah. And by the way, I think, and again, I'll speak to the 50% who care. The other 50%, we got to talk. But I think data hygiene is no different than hygiene, right? It's you're never going to be able to 100% wrap yourself in a bubble and make sure nothing gets out, right? That world doesn't exist. But the world does exist, like all things, where you can consent, you can control, you can understand, and you have that right. And the people that you engage with have that obligation. And understanding that my coffee pot is going to speak to my phone to let me know when it's time to order new coffee, or my refrigerator telling me it's time to new eggs. Though that engagement helps my life, and I'm willing to share and control and consent. The Ring doorbell, I mean, I just put a camera, the largest commercial company in the world, I just allowed to put a camera on my front door and monitor who comes in and out of my home. I mean, just think about that, right? Amazon owns Ring, right? And people do this because that they trust, they understand, and they're willing to make that trade-off to make their world safer and better and other things. So I think at the end of the day, there's no putting the toothpaste back in this tube. Data is not going away. Your data is not going to be, unless you're a tinfoil hat and live off the grid. It's around us all of the time. Just consent, just control, increase transparency, and we got to just practice the best hygiene that we can.
Yes. I think, we're definitely going into, even if people don't believe the world has changed, that's been like my tagline that I keep saying, even if people don't believe the world has changed since 2020, it really has. People aren't interacting or don't act. Like there's this thing I've been reading, like there's the human 2.0, and people are not interacting and don't act as they used to. But it's, as I say, trauma changes you. And so, we've never all experienced a traumatic event of that magnitude altogether. And so, we're each obviously different individuals and react to things differently. And it has had an impact on, each person, and made them, different than they were pre-pandemic. And so, we're dealing with a whole new set of, I would say, thought patterns and how we're going to proceed. But we're not going to be going backwards. I believe in technology is only going to be pushed forward, as we saw, the introduction of the metaverse, and who knows. What's going to unfold for that. I have my thoughts as I'm getting emails to, buy my virtual real estate. So I think we're going to be moving into these, virtual marketplaces, and we're all going to be kind of, I don't want to say player one, but maybe. Yes. I don't know if you ever saw that movie.
I did. Ready Player One. Yeah.
But that's not to, and I'm saying this not necessarily to scare people. We're not at the, we're not getting into this generation of, totally like, all right, I'm a nerd, I'm going to diss them fast. Star Wars, but not over the top. It's not like we're heading to Star Wars quite yet. But we are definitely, going to be using technology as our everyday interaction, and there's going to be kind of no escape from that. So we might as well learn how to utilize it properly. And so in that, what would you say? I know you don't have a crystal ball, but how, I guess, what should people, let's be positive and say, what should people look forward to, the future of data? Like what benefits should they look forward to that data can, make their lives even, even better than they could have ever thought of in the future? I guess, be a futurist for a moment.
Yeah. Well, and in some sense, one of my favorite expressions is never confuse a clear vision with a short distance. So I think the clarity of vision, and Star Trek and Star Wars, there are various distances to get to some of those things. But one of the things you look no further than autonomous vehicles, and you can see it coming right away, right? And it's not just the cars, right? That's an easy one, but it's going to be public transportation of all types, delivery services, manufacture to points of consumption, autonomously shortening supply chains, and all of those things. And I remember it used to believe people thought it was a miracle, and you could call Amazon and get something delivered the next day. Well, now you can do things like in an hour almost. So all of those things are beneficiaries of data, and how it enables us to live in our world in a more convenient, more simplistic, more efficient way, and hopefully more safer as a result. And when we do those things, I think if we do them both cautiously and judiciously, it will be the water that rises all boats. Because if I can take points of manufacture and origin and get it to consumers faster, yeah, it's one thing if you want to get that new Apple Watch and get it. But it also relates to food, right? It relates to perishable commodities. It relates to goods and services. And if I can understand engagement in a city level with data, I can make a difference to the homeless populations. I can get food to the shelters. I can understand the points of need better. All of those things are going to be the beneficiaries of what is going to be more data and more technology working against that data to make not only consumers' lives better, but the entirety of the nation better.
Yeah, no, and I think the whole world better, because one of the things that you did mention was, being able to make the data is for everyone. And I think as they call it, making it democracy of data, or democrat. I can't say the word right now, but yes. But yeah, being able to share data with everyone, I think it will change the world. And I think we are in definitely, if everybody just watches the news and the things that are going on in life, we're in the time that we need to share information in order to be better people, and also to perhaps survive whatever's coming next. Thank you so much for sharing this insight with us about data. It really did open my eyes, and hopefully it opened everyone else's eyes to see that you can actually be just a hero in yourself by sharing your information. And just like everything, there's also good and bad sides. But if we looked at the overarching benefit, and we look outside of ourselves, sharing this information in the long run is going to benefit all of us. And so, don't fear, just, use caution, just like everything else you would be doing in life. Thank you, Jeff, for your time and insight. If you'd like to know more about Jeff, you can go to grabyanalytics.com. If you have a passion for an unserved community, a social justice problem, or simply want to change minds, contact Project Good Work at projectgood.work to start your project of change today. We'd like to send our deepest gratitude to our ongoing show supporter, Blair Chapman. Subscribe at our mailing list at projectgood.work/subscribe to get our episodes and blog articles sent to you each month. Plus, get a 10% discount on any project you start on projectgood.work. It's conference time, and we are hosting our first annual Changemaker Conference virtually on May 25th. Registration is now open, and each conference full ticket comes with a lifetime membership to the Project Good Work Changemaker community. Go to www.changemakerconference.com to purchase your ticket now. To our listeners, thanks for tuning in to Project Good, where we're focused on what matters.